Hello, my name is Philip Bloom and welcome to my kitchen. Yes, it is my kitchen, and you will be surprised to learn that I am actually not that bad a cook. I could be a lot better if I actually spent some more time in England and practiced, but I'm not that bad, not as bad as you may think. Anyway, we're not here to talk about cookery. It's a camera review. Yes, yet another camera review, this time from Sony. 3 cameras, the A7, the A7R, and the slightly peculiar RX10. Now, what's going to make this review slightly confusing, and maybe either the best camera review ever done or the worst, is basically it's a little bit bitty. When I first got the cameras from Sony, I had them for like 3-4 days. I didn't really have much of a chance to get to know them. It was brief. We had a brief encounter. And I shot my review piece to cameras, gave my thoughts on them quite strong. And this was back in November when I had a sexy moustache. Unfortunately, it's gone now. It needs to stay just for November to make a point. But then I asked if I could take the A7R to Vienna for a few more days, and they said yes, which was great because I was able to then get to know the camera a bit more. And it did mean that my opinions changed a little bit more, actually. I was warming to the camera a lot more, well, the A7R that is. So I was going to shoot the piece to cameras, but I didn't get a chance to because I had to fly. It may sound glamorous, but it's not. If you're going plane to plane to plane, the time zone, it's exhausting. That's why I look so knackered. I went to Hong Kong for 2 days to shoot their cheap camera challenge on a Barbie camera. But when I was out there, I bought the A7R from Digital Rev. So I had the camera, I thought, oh, I better get some shots here. I didn't have a chance, I was too busy with that bloody doll. When I came back, I then decided to shoot the piece to cameras. So I shot the piece to cameras, change of thoughts from the initial ones, and I was supposed to edit it, but I didn't get a chance to. Oh well, it gave me even more time to get to know the A7R because I was able to shoot with it in Austin, in Miami, and in New York. So I had 2 choices. I could just redo the whole thing, but I no longer had the RX10 to hold and refer to, and the A7, or I could use my initial thoughts and see how much my opinion had changed, which might be quite an interesting experiment. So it could be the worst camera review you've ever seen from me, or it could be the best. And I'm probably going to use some of my second thoughts that I did after Hong Kong, which basically means if I use all 3 of them, it's going to be a review within a review within a review. Essentially, the inception of camera reviews.
Got a lot ahead of us. We're not doing this alone. 'Cause we got strong hearts, got a lot of faith and trust, praying on our knees. Someday, soon.
So okay, let's go back to a slightly hairier upper lip time for the start of the initial thoughts of the cameras. Full frame's a funny old thing. It's a beautiful aesthetic, and the ability to get a shallow depth of field is second to none unless you sort of go down the medium format route where there's no video cameras at the moment. The shallow depth of field is incredible. The ability to knock that background out of focus and have our depth of field down to a molecule is fantastically wonderful, and also the biggest problem in it's a pain in the arse keeping anything in focus. But we do love the look, and of course if you want a deeper depth of field you simply stop down, but it requires more light. This has been basically DSLRs that have had this. There was a camera, video camera from Sony, I think it was the 900, had the same sensor, the A99, which I didn't like because it aliased and worried like crazy. In fact, there's only 3 DSLRs with full frame that have no aliasing and worry issues, and that's the 5D Mark III from Canon, the 1DX and the 1DC. So it's very much the upper end. Going down the lower end, the 60 has those issues. Nikon's D800 is a fantastic camera, and in sort of like the normal mode, well, 24p, 25p, 30 mode, it's okay. There's a few minor issues. Go to 720 and it sucks. So other than that, the other cameras, well, there's not that many, but they do more in alias. This is key for me. Do these cameras. This is this A7R and does this A7 alias and worry. Please don't do it. We're 5 years on from the revolution. We don't need it anymore. Aren't you sick of aliasing and worry? Aren't you sick of rolling shutter? Before we go on to the full frame ones, let's talk about this, the RX10. It's a unique camera. It's a 1-inch sensor like you get inside the RX100, and it's the RX100 Mark II, whatever it's called. I've got the RX100, it's a nice little camera, 1-inch sensor, so it's a small sensor, not tiny, but a small sensor. So it is obviously harder to get that shallow depth of field, but this has something really unique. This has a lens on it, fixed lens, and it says it is 8.8 to 73.3. That's quite a zoom on it. The cool thing is it's a constant aperture of 2.8, and the reason the number's so small is because of that sensor. What's interesting though is they have actually put on the 35mm equivalent actually on the barrel of the lens, which is a massive 24 to 200. This is a massive length for a constant aperture 2.8. It goes down to nothing and you can slowly push it out all the way to 200 and stay at the same aperture. Now that's pretty special. Sorry to interrupt, but I failed to mention it here, so I just wanted to add it. Now, it's to do with the zoom. The zoom itself has a servo and it has manual. You think best of both worlds? Well, ideally yes. Unfortunately, both of them have been implemented not particularly well. The servo should have a nice soft increasing of touch the harder you press. It does not, it basically just starts. It's ugly. And if you want to use the manual, it's got 3 turns to go all the range on the actual lens. Frustrating on both of them. Has one of these nice little screens which pulls out. It doesn't flip around, but it's not bad. The 1-inch sensor does mean it is harder to get your shallow depth of field. It is possible, obviously with the long lens, does mean zooming in a fair bit. This audio attachment here, which I do believe is extra, it works with a number of cameras, the A99 and these two A7ARs and A7R and A7, get it right, and the RX10, which is actually pretty cool. It fits on like this and you get a nice little mini rig actually, and it's quite stable and, you know, decent preamps in there. A really good audio solution. We're not talking 3.5mm jacks, we're talking hot shoe cable here. Really nice. Big thing about this camera. I'm not quite sure where it's going to fit into the market though. I mean, it's into the filmmaking market. It's a funny old one. I'm not really sure. The 1-inch sensor means it's for any sort of like video journalism. I think it's potentially really good. It's with the audio add-on, I can see a good use of this. I like the RX100. I think it's a great little camera, and that's the key thing. It's little, and that's why I really like it. And I don't mind the 1-inch sensor because it is little. This is not a little camera now, it's big. But did I say it's a 24 to 200mm equivalent lens on it with 2.8 constant aperture zoom lens? If not, I'll try and mention it a few more times later because this is a big feature of it. but it's a big camera to go out with. But I can imagine this being a fantastic camera to, you know, shoot your family with, shoot some events with actually, potentially. The low light performance, I haven't had a chance to test it out yet. I've been told it's pretty good at 3200 ISO. I have seen some images of it, but until you test it yourself, you never know. Interesting camera. The images, what I've seen so far, are good. I want to spend more time with it to really get to know it. Like all the Sony cameras here, AVC HD. It's fine for basic stuff. It doesn't withstand grading particularly well. It does 1080p, 50/60. This is a world camera, by the way. They're all world cameras, which is actually a pretty good thing. It's a world camera. The RX 100 wasn't like that. And 50p, 60p using AVC HD too, so, which is 28 megabits per second. So when you bring it down to slow motion, by conforming it, it gives you roughly half that bit rate. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to grade, even more so. One nice little feature actually is when you flick from, well, it depends if you like steps or not, but if you're shooting still, some people like hard steps on the iris, which is just, there we go. But if a flick of a switch and you have a smooth iris, isn't that nice? I think all lenses should have that. I tried the autofocus on the RX10, it wasn't bad, but autofocus for me, it's still not there because it can't read my mind. It doesn't know that I want to move at this speed as I rack focus from one thing to the other. It doesn't know that I actually want the thing in the left to be in focus and the thing on the right to be out of focus, because it can't decide whether it should be in the middle or not. It's still very much a difficult thing, and I don't see how it can really work in that sort of way unless it can plug into my brain. And I don't have a USB 3 port or a Thunderbolt port. Well, I haven't examined my body enough to actually see that, but I'm pretty certain I don't. Perhaps a Wi-Fi chip is the solution, certainly be less, we don't want any cables anymore. Stick a little chip in there, maybe that NFC thing or something like that, wirelessly connect me to the camera and I can tell it where to focus. That's the future of autofocus. Right now, it just can't know what I want. Where it could work, stick it on a Movi, a Defy, a B-Steady, any of those sort of stabilizing devices, or hey, a Steadicam or Glide Cam, and facial tracking, that works pretty well. Sony really have packed the toys into here. We've got a great OLED viewfinder, we've got a really high quality screen, and we have things like peaking, which is really nice to have, isn't it? You picture profile, has zebras as well. Your picture profile you can flatten out to a degree. It's not going to be super crazy flat. There's no log style profile or anything like that. There's no super slow motion. If they put in 120 frames into this, or 240 if we're lucky, in the same way that the 700 does, the FS 700, this would be a really killer camera. It's pretty good as it is, just haven't spent enough time with it. So yeah, I don't think my opinion has changed, even though I haven't had a chance to shoot with it ever since then, but I had lots of thought time, and I still find it a little bit peculiar as to what that camera is with that sort of size. It's been talked about as like a really good journalist camera. Maybe that's where we see it. I don't know. For me, it holds no real interest, especially when you compare it to the full frame A7 and A7R. The A7R has a higher megapixel count than the A7. It's very, very, very high. We're talking D800 high here, which isn't always a good thing, and it doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter, which theoretically would you think, oh, it's going to be aliasing Moiré like crazy. Apparently it's only a tiny amount you get it on stills. I haven't done enough stills to see that. In video though, looking at them side by side, whether it's my imagination or not, the A7R appears to have a slightly less issues with aliasing Moiré. Both suffer from rolling shutter, of course. Not enormously bad. On the end of a lens, you're going to see it, of course you are. If you're using an optical image stabilized lens, obviously that's going to make things a lot better. But I don't want aliasing and Moiré in cameras anymore. Why do we have to have it? It's 2013. 5 years on from the revolution. We need to join those hands together. I'm telling you, join these hands and chant for the death of aliasing and Moiré. Let this be a plugin that we put into our NLEs in 20 years' time to give us a retro look. Let us not deal with it constantly still in these cameras. And these cameras aren't cheap. They shouldn't be doing them. I mean, it's not hideous, but it's certainly there. Please, Sony, bring us a camera without Moiré and aliasing. We don't actually like it. We haven't asked for it. So why give it to us? We've got loads of features we would like, just don't give us this. I've got to agree, the video functions, aliasing and moire, it's such a shame, it really is. After spending those extra weeks shooting with the camera, it was disappointing to capture some lovely images and then just see those nastiness going on there. Okay, I'm being a little bit overdramatic, a little bit of a drama queen. When it comes to this, it is not the worst aliasing and moire I've seen. It's just when you do have cameras like those Canon DSLRs, why don't Canon fix it in the lower end? The 6D has shocking aliasing and moire, as do all the ones below it. We know Canon are capable of not having it because we see the 5D Mark III, the 1DX, and of course my favourite camera, the 1DC, which is obviously very expensive. The A7 and A7R have so much going for it, so let's not dwell too much on those negatives, and let's see if we can do something about it. The camera does output a nice, uncompressed 422, only 8-bit though, signal out of the, unfortunately, just a micro HDMI port. It's not mini or full size, and of course it's not SDI. If you want that, get a proper video camera. And your LCD and EVF will stay on through the output of the clean HDMI if you make sure you turn the external display information off. And of course, if you're using external recorder, you're going to do that anyway. The only time you'd want to have that display on would be through just purely a monitor device. So going out into my slightly messy garden, but very useful because it has lots of tile slates on the roofs in the distance and detailed foliage. So a good test, and using the Atomos Ninja, I actually prefer the blade by far. The Atomos blade is amazing. It's HD SDI, but using their HDMI Connect, you can simply just slot it onto the back of where the MPF battery goes, one of them, and then put the battery on the back of it. It's brilliant, and it's a simple HDMI in, SDI out. Fantastic little converter. So knowing that, and knowing that it can give you a much better codec, I use ProRes HQ, getting past that nasty other Achilles heel of the camera, the AVC HD. It's not nasty, I'm being really a little bit over dramatic here. It's fine for the web, but it is difficult to grade fully. You are going to get lots of additional issues when the image starts falling apart when you start pushing it, especially if you don't get your exposure right. If you're underexposed too much, try and push it up, it will fall apart quite easily. So we're going to go from 24 megabits per second to 220-ish megabits per second of ProRes HQ. Fantastic. Now, will it get past the aliasing and moire? No, it doesn't, and it doesn't fix the rolling shutter. Those are issues which unfortunately are coming straight off the sensor, and by the time it gets processed in the video mode, that's what we've got. It hasn't recorded it though, and that's what we're getting past here. You can see on the slates, there's your aliasing and the moire. It's there, unfortunately. Detail-wise, it's surprisingly actually very, very similar, to be honest with you. Very similar. Now, what you will find, though, it's when you start getting some more intense movement, because it's a B-frame codec, AVC HD, so it's not an individually sampled frame. It's taking information from the side-by-side frames, whereas the ProRes HQ is an iframe, so it's an individual. So when you do get freeze frames, it does look a lot better, and it will withstand your grading. So if you do underexpose, maybe set a couple of stops, you can rescue it a lot easier than you can AVC HD, where it will still fall apart. There's one other thing that disappoints me about the camera, and that is, to be honest with you, the actual detail of the image. Not the sharpness. Sharpness is the wrong word. The detail. The detail it's a little bit soft. Unfortunately, it's not as good as some of the other cameras out there, especially something like a GH3 detail-wise. It does definitely look much more like a sort of a 5D, but not as good as the Mark III as such. Although the Mark III is a little bit soft too. We're talking Sony E-mount on the 7R and 7. If you've got any E-mount lenses right now, they are designed for APS-C, unfortunately. So when you put them on the camera, it will flick to APS-C mode. You need specially designed E-mount lenses, which are designed for the full frame, or something like this, which is the Metabones EF E-mount, and this is the version 3, which will cope with Canon EF lenses, and it won't vignette. Promise you, it won't vignette. There are other adapters out there for like your Leica lenses and PL lenses, and they shouldn't vignette depending on the vintage of the glass. But the EF, also you're going to have to use full frame glass, don't use any EFS lenses. Make sure it's a version 3 though. Most of the time I am shooting with Leica mount glass. This is the Voigtlander 51.5. This is a fabulous lens to go on it. So let's have a look at some other key features that make the camera so good. Rather than have a look at some really dull shots of the actual ports, and it's very, very boring to look at that. So let's have a look at some more footage from the A7R. And there's some lovely low light stuff in here as well. A lot of it is shot at 3200 ISO and higher. The camera's pretty damn good in low light, I have to say. A little bit of noise, but not bad at all. If you skip past the actual audio additional add-on, you do have a 3.5mm input, so you could use like your Rode VideoMic Pro. It does have better preamps internally than the Canon, so you could get away with the video mic. But I always recommend a VideoMic Pro if you can, because it does have that nice dB booster. Headphone jack, essential, of course. It actually has wireless. Not that I've used it yet, so you can actually see an image on your iPad or something by dialing into it. Downside is you lose the back screen, so not that useful as of yet. Takes SD cards, and it doesn't need any crazy SD cards like the Blackmagic Pocket Camera, because it's only AVC HD. This Class 6 will do just fine, and you can record a huge amount onto a 16GB card because it is AVC HD. The OLED viewfinder is exceptional. The quality is just beautiful. It's far better for me to use that than looking at the screen. The screen is really, really nice actually. It's a beautiful screen. But the viewfinder just makes it look like you've got a massive LCD screen in your face. Massive. So much detail, and it focuses so, well, actually bloody easy if you've got the peaking going as well. So big, big, big plus on that. The A7 isn't as well built, as in it's more plasticky than the A7R. The magnesium alloy front plate of the A7R is fantastic, whereas the A7 definitely feels cheaper. It's only got a magnesium alloy surrounding the lens mount. The A7R in your hands feels like a really solid, robust camera. It feels great in your hands. I haven't really looked at the A7 much at all, I'm afraid. I just really didn't have a time. It seems fine. Whether it's worth getting over the A7R, it is cheaper. So if you're on a budget, then sure, look at it. I just know that the stills out of the A7R, and stills are important to me, are exceptional and are way better, but it is slower autofocus on the A7R, and it does take less frames per second. This is not an action camera. And going from what Sony says about the editing on wire rate, and this is from their own mouths, that there is less. I did push them on it, and it wasn't, they're not obviously going to like, yeah, we have editing on wire rate. They said, yes, it does have it. And yes, there is more on the A7 and A7R. If I had an A7 at the moment, I would do a proper test, but I don't. So you just have to take Sony's word for it, and other people who've said the same thing. Because of its size, I have found a bit of a tendency to shoot more handheld than I would with another camera. Not necessarily a good thing. Handheld should be there for a reason. So I did decide to shoot some shots, just a few shots, with a tripod to prove that you can actually use this 1/4-20 hole and put it on your sticks. Really nice controls, thankfully not touch screen. Takes a bit of getting used to because there's a lot packed onto the back here to get it there, but it's independent controls for the aperture and the iris. And after spending this extra time with the camera, I now really know how to operate it quite easily. It took a while, but I can close my eyes and I can know, that's the dial there for changing the ISO. And I can magnify in here, and the record button, there's a little button to press here. I can do it with my eyes closed. I couldn't initially. I was bumbling around trying to find which button to press, kept pressing the wrong button, having completely wrong effects what I was expecting it to have. But now, blindfolded, I know where everything is. It comes with practice, you know? It's relatively easy to go through the things. It has some crazy picture effects in it. Ignore it. You get your picture profile style down as low as you can. I've turned all my sharpness off, as I normally do. Full frame in a camera this size, that's what makes it so special. It is expensive, so it's tough. If it had no aliasing and moire, this would be a must buy, because it has the audio attachment here. Have a camera this size that's full frame and had no image issues, and this performance and the fantastic stills option. Pretty special, especially with the OLED viewfinder. Because we have those image issues, can you come back to me on that? I'm hoping to get a camera to play with a little bit more, and I'll add something more to this review. I really do hope to get at least one of these cameras to try it a little bit longer and take it actually somewhere and shoot something properly, rather than just a few shots. God, this is a two-part review, isn't it? Okay, this is part one of a two-part review of the Sony A7 and A7R. Thankfully, there is no part two. I was able to borrow the camera for a little bit longer. The A7R though, not the other two. I took it to Vienna and I did some filming at my two-day shooting workshop. And I did some filming around the class while people were shooting and went out and about.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop it!
Am Anfang den Verstärker einschaltet, dass er ein bisschen das Halten Close-up, genau.
Sehr schlecht, really bad.
So you live in Austria but don't speak German?
I'm a fake Austrian. Just live here, enjoy the time.
You do English?
Good.
Bit stressy, but all in all very exciting and very new, because you have to act like you have 5 minutes and you have act happy, act this, and that for 2 or 3 times it's fine, but 25 times it's kind of exhausting, but also really interesting. They are actually all having different ideas. Well, they are kind of similar in the kind of that they involve the stuff that I got with me, the confetti and stuff, but everybody had his own little story or his own little style, at least filming it. So you can definitely say that everybody made his own thing.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
Sony really are close with this camera. The RX10, peculiar. The A7, yeah, it's a good camera, but this with its very large megapixel counts and yet still sterling low light performance, I mean, stills are amazing and the video is good. It's really nice video. It just could be better. And if they could lift up the video performance, I don't expect it to be as impressive as the stills performance, but it should be better. And that means getting rid of that aliasing and moire, getting reduced rolling shutter issues, and please, just if you can't get buy one, invent a new codec that is better than AVC HD. Make it at least double the bitrate, bring it in line with the Canon XF codec, for example, something a little bit more robust. I don't expect XAVC, I don't expect RAW. I am a realist, but I'm sure that consumers would like something better as well that isn't going to tax their systems. I want something that's going to hold up better in grading. AVC HD barely does, especially if you use the 50p and then slow it down. I'm not asking for much, Sony. You have a really, really lovely camera here. If it had those things I'm asking for, the image issues gone, and a better codec, you know what you'd have here? You'd have a f***ing brilliant camera. And we all want a brilliant camera, don't we?
Sony do have the XAVS codec, which is a lower-end version of XAVC. It is designed for 4K cameras though, but the HD is 422, and it potentially could go a high bit rate. We don't know exactly how high, at least 50 megabits per second, and it's also designed for higher frame rates. So ideally, a nice firmware update into all three of these cameras would be wonderful. Of course, it's quite possible that we won't see any firmware update, and we'll have to wait for generation 2. Personally, I'd rather go with the former. As an owner of an A7R, it makes more sense for me and cheaper.
Whilst in New York, I met up with model and friend Lauren Lev, and I decided to lens whack her. That sounds so wrong. Blame James Miller for that. It's whacking, lens whacking. Never abbreviate it to whacking, sounds wrong. It sounds either violent or a little bit inappropriate, to be honest with you. Some sort of thing you'd get arrested for if you were perhaps in a dodgy cinema in the back in a Mac. None of that was happening. I simply disconnected my Nikon lens on my Canon mount from the Metabones, I don't have it here, and did the old light leaks and moving it around, and was able to capture some really lovely images of Lauren around Manhattan, which gave it a really lovely dreamlike feel. And I have to say, lens whacking on this camera is actually really easy, because you've got this great points of contact right up against your face with the viewfinder, and it's a really big screen. And because it's light, and your hand doesn't have to go past a really big point to get to the lens, I think it's a lot easier to whack on this than it is on a Canon, easily.
Don't know how to say I'm about to say. Forgive me if I stutter, 'cause I find my way. 'Cause I'm trying my best. I don't know how to do what I'm about to do. 'Cause if I were to mess it up, would you still help me through? 'Cause just like you. I don't know how to be what you think that I should be. 'Cause if I were to be myself, could you still love me? 'Cause trying to get this right. 'cause I'm my best.
Hopefully that wasn't too confusing for you, the review within a review within a review, the Inception review for the Sony Alpha A7, A7R and the RX10. A little bit confusing myself actually. I might go and sit down and have a drink. Anyway, next time, yes, it's another camera review. And this time it's the digital Bolex. Finally, over 2 years since I backed it on Kickstarter, it's turned up. It looks like a retro 50s phaser. It's not. It is a Super 16 RAW shooting video camera. Yes, Super 16, baby little sensor, very poor low light sensitivity, very nice retro design, matches my film Bolex cameras, which are over there somewhere. Let's find out what this is like next time.
Crazy, what's going on here? Keep going, this is brilliant.
Everybody's saying